Stafford coming back to town Thursday crossover for Lions and Rams.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Thursday edition of both Locked On Rams and Locked On Lions. Matt Dery, your host of the Locked On Lions podcast. Travis Rogers, Locked On Rams. Detroit will host LA Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific, in round one of the NFC playoffs. An unbelievable season, really, for both of these teams. And now it all comes to a head here at Ford Field in Detroit. Of course, thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us for free as well on our Locked On Lions and Locked On Rams YouTube channels. Locked On Lions, Locked On Rams, the Thursday crossover brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Travis, I would make a joke and say thanks for the vine, right? Here we are.
Yeah, I've heard that before, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard it numerous times, but good to see you. And how excited are Rams fans, and how stunned are you that the Rams were even at this point when it was 3-6?
Yeah, I think that's the word, Matt, right? Excitement for sure. And I think probably more than excitement is really surprise. I think even the most optimistic Rams fan coming into this season thought that maybe 500 would be an unbelievable accomplishment. 8-9, 9-8, somewhere in there to really – to get to that point, everything would have had to have broken exactly right. And then, of course, they get off to this terrible start. They're 3-6 at the bye, and it's not even really a very good 3-6. It doesn't look like they've played very good football. I don't know what they did during the bye, but it worked. They're 7-1 since then. They've only lost to Baltimore in overtime, on the road in the rain. Other than that, they've looked really good along the way, and they won 10 games, and it's an unbelievable surprise. And even more surprising, maybe, it's not just that they somehow, some way found their way in. They got a chance to win the game. They got a chance to make some noise when they get there. It's not like they were the best of the bad teams. They're playing well at the most important time of the year, and they got a little momentum coming in.
As far as storylines go, certainly, let's get into it. Here in Detroit, there's two, really. Number one is obviously the return of the quarterback. As I'm referring to him this week as the unnamed quarterback, because I'm all Kelly Stafforded out. And so really that's going to be huge, because I think everybody expected next year to be that return, and we'll play the video, and some people will wear jerseys, and instead he's the enemy now. And, there's all this stuff on the side about, the D-line, one of our the folks that does some swag and stuff here. They're saying a jersey ban and all this. Bottom line is, still has to play that game. And number two is the injury to Sam Laporta, Pro Bowl tight end rookie that's been unbelievable, broke all these rookie records for tight ends. As now you and I are recording here for Thursday, I mean, it's still up in the air. Dan Campbell saying Wednesday he's improved, but that's a big chunk of the offense. And that's a big storyline, because it's a big drop off between Sam Laporta and then James Mitchell, who's a good backup tight end and a good second-year player. But, boy, Laporta not being there would be a big loss for this Detroit team.
Yeah, obviously, you never want to see anybody go down, but that's just one of those things that kind of broke the Rams' way. That's such an important player that might not play, and if he does play, may not be at his best. So we'll see what that looks like. Like you mentioned, the big story, you talked about Stafford coming back to Detroit, and that is, but it's kind of the same thing here, just with the other guy, right? The big story is Jared Goff, and that Matthew Stafford, or should say that Sean McVay, a few seasons ago, basically telling the league, I can't do anything with this guy, or at least this is as far as I can go with this guy. And by the way, they went to the Super Bowl. It's not like they were stuck in the mud and they weren't able to do anything, but it wasn't one of these, it was very clearly, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for us. We need to get better at that position. And he was right. And they made the trade, and it worked. like that instantly. They win the Super Bowl the very next year. So he was validated in the decision. But the story going forward is I have not read a single Rams story this week that isn't about Jared Goff, that isn't about him having an opportunity to kind of square his balance sheet with Sean McVay and a chance to say, yeah, maybe you got what you needed, but I got what I needed too, and I can win some games. And that's what I'm most interested in from a narrative standpoint is just how does Jared Goff respond? Does he take his game to another level? Does he look as good as he's looked more or less all season long? Or does he kind of have that, oh, there's my ex across the way and react accordingly? Sometimes you thrive, sometimes you don't, and we're waiting to see.
I think him being at home is going to help. I think
Sure.
having that crowd there is going to help. And I think he's going to play good football. I love what McVay said the other day, which was classy about, hey, I might not have handled this very well. And he said it twice, which I think, in this day and age of very lacking of accountability all over the place in our country, I enjoyed that. I thought that was real classy and stand up of Sean. And I think that this is a rare trade, Travis, that worked for both teams. I mean,
I think you're right.
It's so cliche, but it's true. I mean, the Lions got all these draft picks out of it, and Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs and stuff, and the Rams got a Super Bowl. It did work, and the Brad Holmes blueprint is not stolen from the Rams, but he's drafted so well, like the Rams always have with Les Snead. And now Les's draft this past year was really good, just like Holmes's. So a lot of mirror images here.
Yeah, there are, I should say, and it's going to be as much about the stuff, for lack of a better word, Matt, that it is about the football, because somebody's going to write the story of, I told you so, without saying I told you so. And I agree with you. Sean McVay is not a vindictive guy. Sean McVay is not a guy that's going to, twist the knife or anything like that. And he did talk about how he might have been able to handle differently. And Jared Goff, at the same time, I don't think the chip's ever going to leave my shoulder for what happened in Los Angeles. And I don't blame him. When they put that on you specifically, and they did, that's got to stick with you. And he's got a chance to square it. To kind of go to the football of it all, I really am fascinated to see how much better Jared Goff has gotten, because if there's anybody, or at least knew what Jared Goff struggled with, it's Sean McVay. It's his coaching staff. It's knowing what he might not really thrive under. I'm sure they're going to throw as much of that as they can at him and see how it handles. And if he has gotten better, and I believe that he has, I think it's going to be an unbelievable game.
We got some top matchups to take a look at. We'll do that coming up next year. Locked On Lions, Locked On Rams, the Thursday crossover before Detroit and LA. I almost said St. Louis. LA coming up Sunday night at Ford Field. And this Thursday crossover episode of Locked On Lions and Locked On Rams is sponsored by BetterHelp. Thinking about therapy, thinking about wanting to talk to somebody. We're here in 2024. It's a new year. There's things that you want to get straight in your mind. And who do you talk to? Where do you turn to? And how does that all work? Well, why don't you give BetterHelp a try? If you're thinking about starting up therapy, it's simple. BetterHelp is great. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suits to your schedule. And the great thing about BetterHelp is you just fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. That is key. Not everybody is comfortable with the first person that they talk to, but you can do that and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge at BetterHelp. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp, that's H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Matt Dery, Locked On Lions. Travis Rogers, the great host of Locked On Rams, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thursday crossover brought to you by PrizePicks. All right, T-Raj, when you look at matchups here, what stands out? What's something that you want to see Sunday night?
Well, I think the number one thing matchup-wise, and I don't know who the Lions counterpart is in this matchup necessarily, it's the Rams kicking game. You know what I mean? Like the Rams are the worst kicking team in the entire NFL by a mile. It's not even close. The Rams have missed 16 kicks this year. They're on their third kicker. None of them have been, two of them are the same guy, right? They open up the season with Brett Maher. He's no good. They get rid of him. They go to Lucas Haversick, who, believe it or not, is actually worse. Now they're back to Maher, and Maher last week against San Francisco missed another point after. I can't wait to see what happens. That I guess, obviously there's going to be some circumstances that determine this, that what's the score, what time of the game, and all these things. I would not be shocked if the Rams just opt not to kick PATs. It would not surprise me at all.
Wow.
What's interesting is there could be a situation where you have to kick it, right? Where it's a 4th and 6 from the 30-yard line and you're down by 1 point and there's 10 seconds left in the game. You have to get. They've missed 16 kicks this year. The next most in the league is 10 from New England. They don't make kicks. And we know how often this comes down in a playoff game to a make or a miss, or if they do try to kick PATs early in the game, if they do miss one, do they go away from it? There's a million different scenarios off of that. It's not Matthew Stafford. It's not Aaron Donald or Kyron Williams or Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. It's Brett Maher and whether or not he can make kicks.
It's amazing because he was so good for most of the regular season last year in Dallas and had that gag job at the end of the year and in the playoffs. And Dallas obviously got rid of him, and they're doing quite well with Michael Aubrey. I think you talk about field goal defense, and the joke went, the uprights and stuff. That crowd is going to be so insane Sunday night that you're right. It's almost like the crowd needs to know and needs to watch you and me and go, oh my gosh, let's get even louder, even for a field goal, because Maher is so shaky. And I also know you guys have had your issues this year covering punts because you're 32nd in the league. So Lions had a really good week last week with Khalif Raymond returning punts. He's questionable for this game, most likely. He also has a knee issue, but that's also something to watch. A flipped field. Jack Fox has been excellent on punts. Raymond on the returns have been good on punts, on the punt return game. Lions are not exactly, they're not exactly as comfortable or as uncomfortable as the Rams kicking, but Michael Badgley is not money either. Lions are also on their second kicker this year. So it would be interesting to see if this would turn into a battle of missed field goals on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd be curious too, Matt, to see if the Rams actually, when it comes to their punting game, if they give Detroit a chance to return any of these punts. I would not be surprised if a number of these punts land in the end zone, land out of bounds, because like you mentioned, they've lost a couple of games or nearly lost a couple of games because of punt returns. The one game they did lose in the second half of the season was against Baltimore in overtime, punt return for a touchdown. They nearly blew a game that at the time felt like their entire season was riding on against the Giants with a punt return for a touchdown. So I think they may sacrifice a little bit of field position in some of this stuff and just blast the ball out of the end zone, blast it out of bounds, and kind of take that off the table for Detroit because they really have struggled with it for most of the year.
Gosh, that one against the Giants, that was like 95 yards, and he just made one turn and he was gone.
He was gone. Yeah, this is not a strong. The Rams can score. The Rams defense is average. It's not great. It's not bad, but their team's play has been abysmal all season long.
Matchup for me certainly is that interior of your defensive line. Aaron Donald, Kobe Turner have been absolutely awesome. I love what the Lions offensive line has done all year. If Frank Ragnow is healthy, stays in the game, the entire game at center, he's as good as there is. And Glasgow at right guard and certainly Jonah Jackson at left guard have been very, very good this year. Jackson, maybe not his best year. He's going into free agency. Still somebody I would retain, but this is, in terms of 1-2 punches on the interior of that D-line, Lions have seen some good ones. Don't get me wrong. They played Baltimore and some others, but these two guys, and you could tell me, Travis, Turner is just, what a pickup that was this year in the draft. And to put him next to Donald, that's tough. That's tough to defend. Yeah,
what Kobe Turner's been able to do has been to really take advantage of the attention that Aaron Donald still deserves to get, that Aaron Donald is double teamed on virtually every snap. He's frequently triple teamed. And can someone else in that interior line take advantage that they're getting singled up over and over and over again? And Turner is the first guy in a couple of seasons that's really been able to take advantage of that to the tune of getting to the quarterback. We've seen some other guys have nice, Ndamukong Suh a few years ago. Last season, A'Shawn Robinson, the Super Bowl season, A'Shawn Robinson did a decent job there. But especially for a young player, Kobe Turner's been really good. He's got 9 sacks. Byron Young on the outside, he's been somebody that's been able to get to the quarterback pretty effectively this season as well. But, it starts with Donald. If Donald is doing the things that he does and has done for the better part of 10 years, you have to double and triple him or he will ruin everything. So it's up to those other guys to go win, and Turner has been able to do it.
You concerned about St. Brown against your corners? I think your corners, from what I've seen with the yak yards, I know there's been some missed tackles, and that's concerned Sean McVay, hasn't it?
Well, sure. I mean, the Rams' best corner, Akilla Witherspoon, is okay, but it's not like he's the second coming of Deion Sanders. He's okay. I mean, he does a good job. And then everyone else, that Dery and Kendrick in particular, is still a younger player with a pretty steep learning curve. He's prone to giving up some very big plays along the way. Got a little bit of optimism last week that Russ Yeast kind of stepped in and had a nice game in the slot. He filled in at safety. Jordan Fuller got hurt last week. We're still waiting to see whether or not he might be able to go. So the Rams secondary is a classic bend, don't break sort of situation. They're going to give up some plays. They're going to give up some yardage. They don't give up a ton of points. I go back and forth with the Rams fans on Twitter that, oh, here we go again. It's like, yeah, I understand they're moving the ball, but they're not scoring. So that yardage is one thing, points are another. They give up yards, but they don't give up a ton of points.
Travis and I will come back coming up next. We got to get into how the Rams are going to win this game, how the Lions are going to win this game, and some predictions. And the Locked On Lions audience is also asking me to ask Travis a very important question about Dan Campbell. You know where I'm going with this. We will do. They're out there. They're like spies. We will do that coming up next as well, right here on Locked On Lions and Locked On Rams, the Thursday crossover. And the podcast today brought to you by our friends at Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin. It's right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, which is pretty scary. Of course, it's freezing here in Detroit, so cold and flu season is here. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if one of my kids or something like that got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from getting the much needed meds they need. Thankfully, we'll all be okay because of our friends at Jase Medical. That's Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. So visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. So that's saving you money. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's jasemedical.com. Matt and Travis back with you. Thursday crossover, Locked On Lions and Locked On Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Travis, my audience, they're crazy. They're like, you got to call out the Rams guy. And I'm like, I got to listen to this. And so you said Dan Campbell, and I don't think you were being negative, but like, I'm going to play along. You said Dan Campbell is going to do something colossally stupid.
Sure.
But it may work for the Lions.
Right.
Right? So we know what are you taking a shot or no? Or are you just like saying he's crazy?
What I'm saying is that I don't know how to prepare for someone that's wildly unpredictable. That's what I'm getting at. That This is somebody who will go for it, who will call. Going back a few years ago when Detroit came back to LA with Jared Goff, an onside kick, a fake punt. Like there's all sorts of things that he does that, there's spots for fake punts. There's spots where you go for it on 4th down that most NFL coaches fall into those little patterns where you kind of know where it's going to come and know where to look for it. There is no pattern with Dan Campbell. He is a wild card among wild cards. So that decision, like, hey, we're going to go for it right here. We're going to give this a shot. Okay, well, all of a sudden you hit somebody flat-footed, and I don't know what it is. Now, if you miss it and you go for it and it doesn't work, it could be the thing that keeps the Lions from winning the game. If you go for it and you hit it and nobody sees it's coming, it could be the thing that wins you the game. Sean McVay is a very dynamic head coach and a play caller and all these stuff, but he's a pretty conservative guy. You kind of know where he's going to go with with this sorts of stuff. A guy like Campbell scares the what out of me, that you just never know what he's going to do. And sometimes unpredictability is incredibly effective, and sometimes it's that what the heck, like going for a 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line, something like that. That could cut both ways.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he's done such a good job. And yes, Sean McVay is a Super Bowl winning coach, and is that, he's that breed of new look, young. Everybody wants the next Sean McVay, the McVay tree, the Shanahan tree, all of that. Here comes Dan Campbell with the meathead thing, the biting the kneecaps. And I get it that a lot of folks go, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. But to take the Detroit Lions and have them with 12 wins, and hosting a playoff game in year 3 is pretty damn good. And I think for the most part, his gambles are not as colossally stupid as maybe year 1. I'm with you. I think in the first year, people went, what on earth is he doing? Now they're used to it. I think in a game like this, I'm not saying that he's going
to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, like, I don't think that he all of a sudden morphs into some, unbelievably conservative guy. He's still going to Dan Campbell it up, right? He's still going to do what he does.
I would think so. But I think, like you said, if he knows that the Rams special teams have been so bad, he may want them on the field and go, all right, it's a 4th and 4. And I usually go for it. Let me bring the punt team out and see if these jokers jump off sides. It's possible. Sure. So that could play into it. But I do think, like you said, a fake punt would not surprise me in this game. I don't think he's going to run a fake field goal. 4th and, if he had to do it again from the 7, like he did in the Dallas game, I think he maybe would have taken the extra point, or kicked the extra point. But it's interesting. I think he's just done a whale of a job. X's and O's wise, he's got arguably the best offensive coordinator there is in the game. And Ben Johnson's going to get a head coaching job. So we'll see, I think, but it will be interesting to see how he does play this and how he does coach this, as opposed to what McVay does.
Yeah, he has been exactly what they needed in retrospect, right? He comes in, and I'll be honest, when I first heard him and listened to him and watched him, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a disaster. And it hasn't been. Like you just said, here you are, you won the division, you won 12 games, you're hosting a playoff game, so it has certainly worked. This is uncharted waters, and I just wonder if the heart portion of his leadership, which obviously is his bread and butter in the way that he does it, it doesn't supersede this portion of it, the analytical portion of it, and just that, well, this is what I do, and okay, cool, but if this doesn't work, it could cost you the game. I don't know if that part of the decision-making process is fully locked in games like this. We'll find out.
No, for sure. As far as how the Lions win, I mean, they got to win the turnover battle. I've been saying it all week. Look, Rams fans know that occasionally Jared Goff has one of those games, and he's had a couple this year where he throws it to the other team. I mean, the pick six against the Raiders in the Monday night game earlier this year, some of it was St. Brown's fault and everything else, but those are ones that sometimes Lion fans store. I think the Lions win if they win the turnover battle. And if the Lions run the football and get back to the Gibbs and Montgomery two-headed monster and really pound the Rams up front, that keeps the LA offense, obviously, which is so good. And we haven't even mentioned Nakua yet. What a year he's had.
Oh boy.
Off the field. So I think that would be another way that the Lions with ball control would win this football game. What do you see?
Yeah, I think that it's not dissimilar to the way that I think that the ideal blueprint for the Rams is you need to have Kyren Williams touch the ball a lot. That as good as Matthew Stafford is, and he's having one of his great seasons, as good as Nakua, who you've mentioned is, I mean, he's on the short list of best wide receiver in football for this season. Cooper Kupp maybe hasn't been the player that we've come to know over the last several seasons, but he's been better in the second half of the season than he was in the first. But I really, truly believe it comes down to Kyren Williams. When Matthew Stafford has some play action to work with, when the Rams have a running game, they're really tough to beat. They have looked like a totally different team since he's come by. And if I have a criticism of Sean McVay, it's his propensity to kind of abandon the running game if it doesn't bear fruit early in the game, that if they're not able to move the ball on the ground because he has such a good quarterback, because he's such a passing oriented head coach, he immediately goes to that passing game. I I don't really care how many yards Kyren Williams has necessarily. I know that the Lions are a pretty stout team against the run. I care how many times they try to run the ball. So if he runs it 20 times for 100 yards, great. If he runs it 20 times for 65 yards, I think that's nearly as good, because I think that you have to continue to pay attention to it, continue to try to stop it, and it opens up some things for Matthew Stafford. So if they stick to the running game, like you said, don't turn it over, and I'll bring it full circle again. Make the kicks you have to make. You don't have to make a 55-yard field goal, but can we make the PATs? Can you make field goals under 40 yards? Can you make the kicks that you're supposed to make, run the ball reasonably effectively, or at least a commitment to the run game? And I think that's the secret to their success.
A couple things to watch too on the Lions front. Number one, third quarters have been a real problem. The cornerback situation right now is not been good, although getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, and kind of using him as a hybrid. Brian Branch is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The guys on the outside, Kendall Vildor and Cam Sutton, have not played well as of late. And when you're playing Puka Nacua, like you said, who's at as good a year as anybody, and if Cooper Kupp is playing like 2022 Cooper Kupp, that's something to keep an eye on. Prediction wise, Travis, what do you think?
I think it's a close game, and that's why it scares me as much as it does, Matt, because what do close games mean? It means kicking. It means making a kick or missing a kick. I will be optimistic and hope that Brett Maher has a good day. We'll call it 27-24 for the Rams, but I think this is the best game on the board the entire weekend. I think it's the most competitive game on the board. It's got the best stories of the weekend. If the Rams can make kicks, I think they squeak it out.
Wow. No, look, it's a 3-point spread for a reason, right? I think that crowd plays a factor. I do. Obviously for this building, and obviously the last Lions home playoff game was 93 at the Silverdome, the Brett Favre Sterling Sharp game that Lion fans want to forget, and they'll probably be ticked off I brought it up. But this place is, I can't even imagine. Like I said, I was there for the Monday night game against the Raiders, and that's the Raiders. And yeah, when you see the silver and black uniforms, you get a little bit fired up. But
sure,
it was deafening. But for something like this, with all these stakes and it being number 9 coming back, I think the Lions win it based off. I think the crowd is going to play a factor. I think a couple of false starts, pushing a 3rd and 8 to a 3rd and 13, play a role in this thing. And I think the Lions win, we'll say, similar to you, like maybe 27-21, something like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the Rams do with that crowd noise, because look, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I've said it so many times, I've gotten used to it. The Rams really don't have much of a home field advantage. There's a ton of people that come into SoFi Stadium and kind of take the place over, and they're used to playing in front of hostile crowds. And what the Rams are at the most important spots, they are experienced. They're experienced at head coach. They're experienced at quarterback. The offensive line has some guys that have been around the block a few times along the way. Cooper Kupp is not going to freak out because it's loud in there. He knows where to be and what to do. Aaron Donald is going to take care of his business. They're most important. Their best players have been through this a lot. Not necessarily the same for a lot of the Lions' best players. This is uncharted territory for a lot of them. So kind of that push and pull of home field advantage, raucous crowd, adrenaline versus just, hey, I've been here before. I know what this feels like. I know how to respond to it.
Travis, was fun, man. Great to see you, and good luck Sunday night.
You got it, Matt. Thanks.
Travis Rogers, Locked on Rams. Check him out on Twitter or X at Travis Rogers. I'm at Dery Speaks, Matt Dery, Travis Rogers, Locked on Lions, Locked on Rams. It's the Thursday crossover. It's been brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.